Kick it off with this story just in. The motion of no confidence against Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse has been withdrawn. Let's take you live to Mbali, Thethani, who's been watching the proceedings in council for us throughout the day. Mbali, there have been big questions around whether or not this motion would actually succeed. A lot seemed to hinge on the EFF and what it would do in this moment, but of course it held its cards very close to its chest. What has happened then this afternoon?
Certainly right, Kathy. Of course, what we've seen transpire here today in the Johannesburg Council is indeed what we saw the EFF play a major role in the outcomes of today and seeing these motions being withdrawn. Let's take a listen to the mayor as she addresses the media.
Following what happened in Ekurhuleni, and we expected that the same would follow in the city of Johannesburg. It would appear as though the opposition bloc did not have the numbers. It would appear as though there was no agreement, particularly between the EFF and the ANC. That's what we suspect. So yes, we expected that they will not be able to agree here as much as they were not able to agree in Ekurhuleni, and we're quite grateful that that's exactly how it played out.
They say you are still not safe, though. They are going to regroup come January. They are going to sponsor another no-confidence motion in you. And seeing that they managed to block your request to request a 2 billion rand short-term loan, chances are they still have the numbers. They will get rid of you come January.
Well, there's always a threat of a motion of no confidence in our politics. We've got a democratic society and we've got to give people the opportunity to do so. I have, of course, a concern about the frequency of these motions, and this is something that we will be tabling to our rules committee. Ekurhuleni has a 6-month rule. Parliament has a 6-month rule. The city of Johannesburg has no limit to the number of motions of no confidence that can be brought, and that's problematic. It does not speak well for stability, and that's something that really urgently needs to be looked at. Our focus now will be to make every day count. Every day that we've been given to serve our residents will be used exactly for that reason. Yes, we did not approve the 2 billion rand loan yesterday. We were quite disappointed. We're not yet in a crisis situation, as the group CFO explained. We will be meeting, in fact, tomorrow. We will be convening to look at what can be done. The good news is that Operation Buyam Tetu is in full swing. We are collecting revenue. We're seeing big owers coming to, debtors coming to the city to pay us what they owe us. So we're quite excited about that. There's a 47 million rand pledge from the NHLS. There's a 40 million rand that's come through as well today, I think, from Gauteng e-government, and so on and so forth. And we're watching the Department of Health as well very closely. We've given them until tomorrow to pay something towards the 240 million rand debt. So with every day that comes, we continue to collect, and we're going to continue with this operation and hopefully increase revenue collection. However, that's not the only thing we're going to do to deal with the financial situation. We continue to strengthen controls, internal controls, to look at expenditure and so on and so forth. We've got a whole team that is led by the Mpho Finance and the group CFO in partnership with myself and the city manager to look at what everybody can do to contribute, including looking at areas where we've not been collecting revenue. For instance, JPC, we know the Joburg Property Company has many properties, over 29,000. We're not realizing as much revenue from the entity as we could, and we've already started dealing with that. That's one thing. The other issue is outdoor advertising. It's one area that we realize we're not realizing as much revenue as what we should. So all the MFCs have quite a bit of work on their hands. This work was going to unfold, and I believe that the situation we find ourselves in is probably a blessing in disguise, because we're going to move with speed and make sure that we don't find ourselves in a crisis situation.
Mayor, what do you make of the fact that the reason why you only in your position now is because of, the political battles between the ANC and the EFF in Ekurhuleni? And, when it comes to you saying that they didn't have the numbers today, one would say, like my colleague is saying, that they do indeed have the numbers because of what we saw yesterday, the voting in of, the voting out of that DBSA loan. What are you planning to do to ensure that come January, when they've promised to bring back this motion, that, your bloc will be solid?
They did not have the numbers to oust me. They didn't have the numbers to oust even the chairpersons that they wanted to remove. So yes, I still say I believe they did not have the numbers. The DBSA loan item was a separate item altogether. Politics is a numbers game, and every day things can change in politics. We've seen it. We've been a year in office. I was elected on the 22nd of November last year. There's been so many changes. We've seen people move from one side of the council to another, and that will continue to happen possibly until the end of term. Nothing is certain, so I also wouldn't be so sure if I were them that they'd be able to bring it back and succeed.
What is your end game, Executive Mayor? Because you as the DA, as well as Action SA, you don't have enough to retain you in your position. You would require the minority parties. And for now, we know that you enjoy the support of the Freedom Front Plus, I think ACDP, as well as the IFP. How are you going to convince particularly other minority parties who at some point were with you to bring back the vote to retain you in the top position?
We continue to reach out. Talks are ongoing, even at a national level. Our leaders are talking on an ongoing basis with parties that are even in the opposition bloc to see how we can strengthen and stabilize this coalition. So that commitment remains. We continue to reach out. But in the meantime, we continue to focus on service delivery and be thankful for every day that we've been given to continue to govern.
Is the EFF off the table? We know the FedEx has actually rejected ever working with them.
The FedEx rejected formal working relations with the EFF, but we know that at a local level, we work with all political parties. So, for instance, if we need to pass a budget, if we need to approve an IDP, we will approach all parties. We will not exclude even a single party. These parties represent constituencies in the city of Johannesburg. The EFF has 29 seats in our council of 270 that represents constituencies that require services from us, and their voice is important, and we will continue to listen to that voice.
Any talks with the Patriotic Alliance?
I believe that the Patriotic Alliance is confused, personally, and I will leave it at that.
What's on your diary tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow we've got a few things lined up. In fact, myself and MMC Sun will be launching or unveiling Fleet at Pick It Up. We're quite excited about that, new Fleet. That's just one of the things. The Joburg Open is ongoing until Sunday. More than 50 countries around the world watching the tournament right here in the city of Johannesburg. We believe that we will be attracting investment as we showcase what our city is really all about. So we're very important about the economic stimulation that comes with that. We will be continuing with that tomorrow in the morning as well. We will cut the ribbon for the Joy of Jazz, another big event, one of our flagship programs. It's coming again. It's starting tomorrow, and the day after that, another one that's boosting tourism and economic activity in our city. So a very busy city, a very busy weekend. We're very excited.
All right. Thank you very much. Of course, that is the Mayor of Johannesburg, Mpho Phalatse. We're just going to bring in Margaret Arnold. She's one of the people that had filed this motion. Kathy, you'd remember that she actually withdrew it today, as well as Lubabalo Makwenchu from the ATM. Just going to get her to comment now.
Ma'am, how are you going to be working? What is the plan going forward? Do you intend to bring another motion or no confidence motion in the executive, ma'am?
Well, we've asked her to show us that she can deliver services. We've asked her that she needs to prove to us that there is money. I just heard what she said, that they are collecting revenue. They are collecting revenue and cutting electricity and water in the townships where people are unable to pay. They are not going to the big businesses and getting big businesses to pay for their arrears, but it's rather on the little man and little woman in the townships that they're doing that. I've also heard her saying that we don't have the numbers. Yes, we do have the numbers. Yes, the EFF is still committed to the minorities. The ANC is still committed to the minorities. And I'm certain that by the weekend we will have an answer from Ekurhuleni and we'll be able to deal with all these issues.
Margaret, one would ask why it seems as if you wasted the time of council, of bringing a motion, and then ultimately 2 days later you withdraw it. Really, if you can bring us up to speed with, why such great lengths to withdraw a motion?
Well, we went through this great lengths because if you remember, you were in council yesterday, all of you were in council yesterday when we did not pass the DBSA. And we are still of the thought, and we still believe that if there is money, why do they want that loan? So we want them to prove to us they don't need the loan, they have the money, and they are able to give us services. Cars are being repossessed continuously. Why is that happening? Contracts are not. You heard this morning that even IT is in a problem. So she must be able to prove to us that as the mayor, she's got all her ducks in a row. And I don't think she has.
All right,
Thank you very much. Of course, that is Margaret Arnolds from the AIC. We've just spotted Dada Morero. He's the chairperson of the ANC in Johannesburg. And of course, we're going to certainly ask him the issues around, how it got to where we find ourselves right now.
In Johannesburg, having said 25 days.
I did a lovely 25 days, which was more about outreach programs, meeting with communities to find solutions to their programs. Well, we have taken a view today, once we have received an instructions just around 12, that there's ongoing debates and discussions between the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC and the national leadership of the EFF in terms of consolidation of numbers, and were therefore instructed that we should withdraw the motion to allow for them to consolidate and conclude the discussion, and we will then give a way forward as to what will happen. Likelihood is that the motion will then be retabled in the new year, early next year, so that we can then continue with what we have planned. In essence, we'll still continue with the motion, except that we have parked it for a bit to allow Mayor Phalatse to have a wonderful Christmas this year, so that she can end on a good note with a beautiful Christmas this year. So that's
the mayor says that you don't have the numbers, and hence why we saw the motion being withdrawn today. Do you have the numbers?
Well, you're dealing with a denialist. She's denied that we don't have numbers. Yesterday we were here in council. We demonstrated that the numbers are there when we voted against the said loan that she wanted to raise, when she had went out publicly to say that there's enough finances in the city, there's no crisis. So the numbers are there, but there's a small issues that needs to be finalized between our leadership. And once that is finalized, we'll definitely come back to council and ask her that question once we have taken over, whether we don't have numbers or not.
Somebody called this withdrawal a tactical retreat. Does it have anything to do with the developments in Ekurhuleni? The former mayor there, Mzwandile Masina, who refused to hand over Ekurhuleni to the EFF, and ultimately the DA was reinstated. He's no longer a councillor there. Does this mean that the ANC will vote for the EFF to take over Ekurhuleni, and in return the EFF will support you as the ANC to take the mayoral chain here in Johannesburg?
Well, the discussions between ourselves and the EFF in Johannesburg, as you know, we started our processes as Johannesburg long before there was a matter of Ekurhuleni. Therefore, our understanding remains that Johannesburg remains a different story, and Ekurhuleni is another story. And even in the discussions between the two leaders, Johannesburg still been maintained as a different story, because it started its processes alone with small parties or the partners, and there was no one else except ourselves and the EFF. So the leadership of the ANC has acknowledged that Johannesburg is a different story. The EFF itself has acknowledged that it's a different story. But there are a few things that just need to finalize.
Yeah. At some point before the tabling of that particular motion of no
Yes.
confidence, we saw you having an interaction with the executive mayor, Mpho Phalatse. You were having a jolly time. And even now, after the withdrawal of this, you went to her, you were chatting to her. Do you mind sharing with us what exactly you guys were talking about?
No, we're just talking and laughing about the whole situation. Remember, it's not about us as human beings. We remain human beings, but this is it's issues about politics and political parties. But me and her remain human, and there's nothing wrong in us still interacting. We don't hate each other. We have different political ideological stance, and that's all what separates the two of us. But generally, we talk. That's the spirit of what should happen in councils. We may differ and fight, but once the item is concluded, we still have to be human beings.
Of course, so that is Dada Morero, the ANC chairperson, of course, and someone who a number of the political parties here, that being the minority parties, had said that they continue to support him to come in once they have that motion of no confidence. Of course, at the same time, talking about that motion of no confidence and why really these minority parties took the decision that they took in terms of withdrawing it and saying that it is coming back to the table next year. And of course, but at the same time, Mpho Phalatse being adamant, saying that they do not have the numbers. But these are negotiations which are taking place at a provincial level. These are negotiations taking place also at a national level with the EFF. But of course, now know that those two motions have been withdrawn. Mpho Phalatse survives another term here in this council.